We'd like to introduce Rabbi Yaron Reuven, he's a good friend of ours. He's a guest in Makor HaChaim over here in Tarzana, California. Rabbi Yaron Reuven came from Florida, and he was invited here to speak. The name of the lesson today is Jewish Unity. That's the subject. And I'm sure that Rabbi Yaron Reuven can speak for 1 week non-stop if we really want him to. Probably 3 days without sleep, I'm sure. Without a problem. And Rabbi Yaron Reuven is expert on kiruv of the kind of people who are far away from the Torah by eating directly to the sensitive points of the heart and changing people's lives without further הפרעות. I would like to invite Rabbi Yaron Reuven to speak.
תזכו למצוות. תודה רבה. תודה רבה לכם. תזכו למצוות. בעזרת השם. בשם השם נעשה ונצליח. It's wonderful to be here in Encino, Baruch Hashem. Be'ezrat Hashem. Be'ezrat Hashem. Be'ezrat Hashem. The Keilah will let you do what you need. Be'ezrat Hashem. The situation today is not a big secret. Everyone knows that unfortunately we are at war. Sorry. We have a war that's happening physically, and we have a war that's happening spiritually. The physical war, Imach Shimam v'zichram, these Arabs don't rest without doing something bad to Am Yisrael. That's what they do. Unfortunately, their actions are not independent of the Creator, meaning that Chazal teaches us there's no such thing as suffering without sin. There's no such thing as even a leaf falling off of a tree without asking permission and authorization from HaShem Yitbarach. Meaning that it's impossible for an Arab to even press a button of a missile without Hashem saying, go. So the next question that most people have is, why would Hashem want to scare his kids? Why would Hashem want to hurt his kids? We see, unfortunately, there's more stories of injuries and death. HaShem. Why would Hashem do such things? And for anyone who hasn't been living under a rock, knows that terrorism is not just in Israel, it's all over the world. It's arrived here in America as well in the last 20 years. Anti-Semitism has increased in the U.S., the land of the free, the land that's considered our allies, from 40% of the American public to, at this point, a recent study said it's 52%. Meaning 52%, over 200 million Americans that we call our allies, openly admit that they have no problem in killing Jews. If our allies are like this, Shem and HaChaim, what's with our enemies? And these are the ones that admit. So we have rockets in the air. My rabbi tells me that the situation in Israel is very, very tense. Every mother, it doesn't matter how religious she is, she wakes up in the morning, she's happy. Why? Shem Yachem. 20, 30, 40, 50 missiles every few minutes you see in the air. Every few minutes. Every mother is worried about our kids. You don't have time to worry about yourself. You worry about the kids. You worry about the husband. He went to work. Is he coming back? Situation is tense. In America, we had a murder happen in a synagogue a few weeks ago, purely based on anti-Semitism. Now, of course, there are many different issues in regards to how people followed or didn't follow halacha in the place, but it's neither here nor there. We all know that the murder is a murder nonetheless that Hashem authorized. Hashem authorized it. The difficult thing that most people have with the Holocaust is, how could Hashem allow such a thing? They ask, it's a common question that people say, where was God during the Holocaust? Torah in Parashat Kitavo and Parashat Bechukotai tells us, what do you mean, where was he? He's the one that did it. Nothing is independent of him. Everything is by him. So we always look for the Torah to tell us the story. Now, I'm not a Navi, and I'm not the son of a Navi. But you don't need to be a Navi. All you need to do is look at the Torah. The Chafetz Chaim Alav Shalom says people spend an enormous amount of money looking for advice on big decisions. He wants to buy a building, he wants to get married, he wants to get divorced, he wants to sell the building that he bought. People make big decisions, they need some advice. Today, people are willing to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for advice. Chafetz Chaim says, you get it for free. Just look in the Torah. Look into the Torah. Now, obviously, you need to know how to look. But if you look into the Torah, you can get anything you want. Advice about your business, advice about your marriage. But also advice about what's happening in the world today. And where are you going to look? The first place to start is Parashat Shavua. Every time. The first place to start is the weekly parasha. Whatever parasha you're up to in the world today, that's the first place to look. If you look at the parasha with commentary, so you know what's going on, because you can't just decide what things mean based on your own logic. You have to know what the HaChaim say. If you look at the parasha with commentary by Rashi, you'll find the answer. Guaranteed, or your money back. Now we're going to look. We're going to see. What can the parasha tell us? This is this week's parasha, not last week's. I'm not cheating. And not next week's. I'm not telling you the future either. All I'm telling you is this week's parasha. What can the parasha tell us about the situation today? What does it have to do with the topic that you picked? Unity. I didn't pick unity. You picked unity. So that means that the parasha, it's not me. Don't ever chas v'shalom think I did it. Don't give me any kavod at all. This is, you picked the topic, unity. HaShem decided the missiles are going to go in the air at the same time you picked the topic of unity. But he also decided there's going to be an answer. B'ezrat HaShem together, we're going to find out how all of them combine. Now this week's parasha is Parashat Vayeishev. Vayeishev Yaakov miBe'er Sheva, Vayelech Harana. Yaakov departed Be'er Sheva and went to Haran. So here we see already from the parasha that Yaakov left the house of his father because he was escaping Esav. There's an halacha in Judaism that nothing we can do about it. Esav soneit Yaakov. Esav hates Yaakov. Even though sometimes Esav seems like a nice guy. We do some business with him. He donates some money. He gives us a ride at the Uber. Esav seems like a nice guy many times. I have many people that are part of Esav, but they're friends. But there's halacha. Meaning it's a law from Mount Sinai. Ultimately, Esav soneit Yaakov. Esav hates Yaakov. Meaning, at the time of war, don't go to Esav's house. Go to Yaakov's house. Why? Yaakov loves you. Even though you're a Sephardi, you're Ashkenazi, you're Sephardi, all that stuff is all shtiyot at the time of war. At time of war, it doesn't make a difference if you're Reform, if you're conservative, if you're Orthodox, if you're Chiloni. All that stuff doesn't make a difference. At time of war, Yaakov is together. But Esav, not so much, not so much. So, we see that Yaakov here left. Chazal tells us that before he arrived at the house of Lavan, he was at the yeshiva of Shem and Evel for 14 years. For 14 years, he didn't sleep in a bed. He slept in a chair for 14 years. I think if we sleep in a chair for one night, that's already considered like Yaakov 14 years. But then, we see something extraordinary. We see that Yaakov, after he leaves, he's on the way to the house of Lavan, and he decides he wants to take a nap. Finally, after 14 years, lay down. And he sleeps. And it says, Vayikach me'avnei hamakom, vayaseh mirashotav. He took from the stones of the place, which he arranged around his head. Meaning it was a bunch of small stones. He took and made one bigger stone. But it's 12 stones nonetheless. It's 12 different stones. Symbolic, by the way, of the future, him having 12 tribes. When he woke up, it says that there was only one even. Vayikach et ha'even asher sam mirashotav. that when he woke up, there was only one Evin. There was only one stone. Meaning that miraculously, the stones combined into a single stone. Already symbolic of the power of unity. Already symbolic that this is what we need to do. He started with 12 separate. At the end, he has one single. What happened in between? What happened in between, Rabotai Yekarim, is a very, very difficult situation to understand without going into the depths of the Torah. It says that Yaakov fell asleep and he had a dream. Ve'inei malachei Elohim olim ve'yordim bo. Yaakov fell asleep and he dreamt, behold, there's a ladder that's reaching the heavens, and the angels of God were ascending and descending, going up and down. Chazal says, what do you mean they were going up and down? Now the pshat, the simple meaning is that the malachim went all the way up to Shamayim. They saw the image of Yaakov on Kisei HaKavod, on the throne of glory of HaShem. They saw Yaakov. It's like, oh, look at Yaakov. The other angels, no, he's down there. They went down. He said, he's down here. How could he be over there and over here at the same time? That's the pshat. That's the basic midrash. But the Chachamim go deeper. He says, it's okay. So they went up and down. Why do we care if they went up and down? He says, the Chachamim, the Malachim, they don't have the Rachmanut, the mercy of Hashem. They don't understand the concept of free choice. Because they don't have free choice like we do. They have a different type of free choice. It's not like ours. When a malach sees a Jew making a mitzvah, he doesn't make such a big deal out of it. In fact, the malach asks himself, how could you even think to not do this mitzvah? How could you think to do a sin against Hashem Yitbarach? You know what you're dealing with? The malachim. Malachim are very, very serious. That's why it's very dangerous. People that deal sometimes with the Zohar, there's certain parts of the Zohar that unless you're a huge Talmid Chacham, you have to stay away from. And the reason why is because it has the names of certain malachim, where if you're not already a very holy person that has cleaned themselves of sin, purified themselves, does not make any of the intentional sins, especially Zera Levatala and things of that nature, if you say those names, Hashem Yachem, you can cause damage to your life. Anyone that doesn't want to believe me, you should go to Har Nof in Yerushalayim. There's an entire hospital for those people. Bemet. There's an entire hospital for those people that deal with the Zohar and Kabbalah, and they're not reuyim, they're not at the level of dealing with it, then things happen to them. So now these malachim that don't have the ability to understand our free choice, they see Yaakov Avinu in Shamayim. They see him in Kisei HaKavod, but then they see him sleeping. And the malachim get very, very upset. He says, Yaakov, you dare sleep in the place of Hashem? And Olim v'yordim bo means they all started debating who's going to kill him. Who's going to kill Yaakov Avinu? Why? He says, how can you sleep? How dare you sleep? Hashem's here. You have to go do mitzvot. That's when Hashem came and shooed them all away. He says, no, don't worry. He's a tzaddik. Hashem fought for him. Why did Hashem fight for him? Because of the next pasuk where he says, Vayikatz Yaakov mishnato, Vayomer achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadati. Vayira vayomar mai nora hamakom hazeh en ze ki im bet Elohim v'zeh shar hashamayim. Yaakov awoke from his sleep and said, surely Hashem is present in this place and I did not know. And he became frightened and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the abode of God, and this is the gate of heaven. As soon as Yaakov Avinu understood that Hashem is here, it says, Vayira. Yira means Yaakov got scared. Where do we also see this? All of us know in Tefillah, in Shachrit, we go over Akedat Yitzchak, and during Akedat Yitzchak, Hashem tells Avraham, Ata yadati ki yirei Elohim ata. Don't touch the lad, don't touch the Yitzchak, because now I know you fear me. Now I know you fear me. So we see that the same fear that Avraham had, we see it again with Yaakov. Where do we see it again? We also see with all of Am Yisrael later on. Later on, you'll see, after also in Tefillah and Shachrit, in Sefer Shmot, chapter 14, we see that Am Yisrael crossed the Sea of Reeds, crossed the Yam Suf, and it says, Vayar Yisrael et hayad hagdola asher asa Adonai b'Mitzrayim, vayiru ha'am et Adonai vayaminu ba'Adonai b'Moshe avdo. It says, Israel saw the great hand of Hashem and how he inflicted on the Egyptians, and the people feared Hashem, and they had faith in Hashem and in Moshe his servant. So what's the connection between Avraham, Yaakov, and Am Yisrael? What does it have to do with us anyway? So first and foremost, we see that the Pasuk in Sefer Shmot gives us a map of how to get to the emet, how to get to the truth, how to get to the secrets that we really want. First it says, Vayar Yisrael. Am Yisrael saw the hand of Hashem. Meaning, if you want to see Hashem's secrets, first you have to acknowledge that He exists. First you have to acknowledge that everything that's happening in the world comes from Him. The building that you built, He gave you the money. He gave you the wisdom. He gave you the ideas. The kids you have, He gave you the ability. He gave you the wife. He gave you the husband, and so on and so forth. As soon as you start by acknowledging Hashem, then we can move forward. Until then, we're atheists. Shem Yachem. People that believe the whole entire life is to become trees one day. To live, to die, so they become a tree, so somebody can write a Sefer Torah on them, maybe. That's the whole purpose of life. So first thing we have to acknowledge, Hashem is real. And He's connected to everything. He does everything. He has no body, no image of a body, no beginning, no middle, no end. And Am Yisrael saw this great hand of Hashem at the Sea of Reeds, and immediately it says, Vayiru ha'am. Everyone became scared. And then, Vayaminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdo. They saw the hand of Hashem, they got scared to death, and then they said, I have emunah. Meaning that already we see this repeated in the Torah at the time of Avraham, at the time of Yaakov, at the time of Am Yisrael. There's a constant implication and teachings that as soon as you acknowledge God, immediately the first feeling you should have is not love and affection and warm heart. No, fear. Why fear? Because now you understand what you're dealing with here. Now you understand what you're dealing with here. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai writes in the Zohar Kadosh, he says something extraordinary. He says, a fear of Hashem, to connect to Hashem, purely based on fear, is a connection to Hashem, but it's incomplete. It's not complete. Why? Ideally, you're supposed to fear Hashem and love Him at the same time. That's ideal. That's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He feared Hashem and he loved Him. But if you fear Him only, it's incomplete. You have like part of the equation. What about if you just love Him? Well, if you just love Him, it says there's no such thing. There's no such thing as just loving Hashem. So what about, he writes in the Zohar, so what about those people that say, oh, I love Hashem. He says that's a fake emunah. That's a fake Hashem. That's not Hashem. That's fake. It's not going to hold up. It's not going to hold up at the time of tests. Now, so a lot of people today, I tell you, no, I don't want to fear Hashem. He's like my friend. I love Him. And they tell you all these different things of how they have this nice relationship with Hashem. They go to the trees and they talk to Him in there. They go on their, on their meripeset, on the balcony, and they talk to Hashem and have this wonderful relationship, and they sing to Him and they dance, and that's all great. Only that it won't survive the war. It won't survive the war. Why? Because when there's a war, either in the world or in our personal lives, love doesn't mean anything. Love for Hashem is not going to hold up at the time of war. When there's missiles in the sky, when there's murderers coming to Batei Knesset, when there's Shem Yachem, what's happening in the world, we're not going to think about loving Hashem. Why? Because now all the things that we loved about Hashem, He took away. The safety we thought we had, gone. The money we thought we had, gone. The wife, the husband, the friends, all that stuff is gone. So what are you going to love Him for? All the stuff you loved Him for were nice things. What about when He takes it away? What when he takes it away? So that's the thing. That's why Hashem Yitbarach himself says, why did I create the world? People ask this question all the time. Why did Hashem create the world? There's a pasuk in the Torah. For you to fear me. That's it. That's the reason. For you to fear me. Alvai you get to love me also. But even if you don't get there, at least there's a connection. At least fear gives us a connection. So, here we see that Hashem demands a certain connection from us. Now, in the Gemara Masechet Brachot, page 6a, it says the different learnings about Shema Yisrael, about Kriyat Shema. And it says that Hashem Yitbarach is so connected to his people that he also laced tefillin too. Now, no one misunderstand us to think that Hashem actually has a piece of leather on his head because he doesn't have a head. This is more Kabbalistic teachings where every time you create a mitzvah, you create a certain aura, a certain energy. Anyone that understands anything about meditation and aura and things of that nature knows that every single person has a certain image around him, certain energy around him. The holier a person is, for example, really holy people have white or purple. People that are the opposite have red. So meaning that every time a person does a mitzvah, it affects that aura. It affects that aura. There was somebody that actually used to be an atheist, and he did teshuvah because of this. Because he created a machine that could actually read your aura, show you on a computer image what your aura looks like. And what changed his life? One time he saw the average person has an aura that's closer to the color yellow. Closer to the color yellow, reddish, and so on. But one time somebody told him, let's try with something else. Let's try putting tefillin. Put tefillin on this person. And the person put tefillin. Immediately the aura of that person turned to something he's never seen before. Purple. Meaning almost like an angel. So then they said, wait, maybe they check a different tefillin. Maybe there's something electromagnetic or something in this tefillin. They tried different tefillin, same thing. Different tefillin, same thing. They said, let's try something else. Let's take out the klaf, the scroll from inside the tefillin, and see what happens. They took out the klaf. Not only was it not purple anymore, it turned into a very, very negative color. Meaning that the Torah that's inside it is what's affecting the Torah. But the Torah, it's a piece of paper. It's a piece of leather. He saw the same thing actually with women that cover their hair. He says that when a woman covered her hair with a mitpachat or a hat, she had the same impact on her aura like a man puts on tefillin. When a woman puts on a wig, it was the opposite. It was like the tefillin without the scroll. You see it in the video. It's available on the internet. I didn't make this up. But he said that originally he wanted to make a big deal out of this because he wanted to tell people, listen, maybe women should wear mitpachat instead of wigs. His rabbi says, listen, you're getting into a bigger war than you. Leave it alone. Just publish it as it is. Because that's part of our war at the end of times. What's true, what's false, what's right, what's wrong. There's a lot of debates between us. But nonetheless, the Gemara says that Hashem Yitbarach has tefillin, he puts on tefillin. So the HaChaim ask, what does Hashem have in his tefillin? Because we have Shema Yisrael in there. What, does he say Shema Yisrael to himself? He says, no. He has a pasuk from the Torah, from the book of Chronicles, that says, Mi ke'amcha Yisrael. Who is like your nation, Hashem? Who is like your nation? Chamim say, what, Hashem is so proud of his people, he's taking pride from his people? Gemara says, yes, of course, it's his love and joy. The people are his love and joy. Am Yisrael is his love and joy. So again, we're back at the same question. Why would Hashem, that's so proud of his people and loves his people so much, and reminds himself of that as such, why would he send missiles? Why would he send all these terrible things that are happening? Now, I was told you guys are sophisticated, so you're going to follow along with me here. All of us have heard the word Torah. Torah has a numerical value, gematria value of 611. Taf is 400, Vav is 6, Resh is 200, so it's 606, and Hey is 5, 611. Now, Torah, who was it given to? It was given to Am Yisrael. Originally Hashem offered it to the other nations, but the other nations said, no, we cannot fulfill your Torah. Why? You said that we're not allowed to murder. So Ishmael said, the Arab says, no, that's how we make our money. Esav came and says, no, you're saying we can't steal. Sorry, if it's not stealing, then there wouldn't be any Wall Street. Don't worry, I'm insulting myself. I was on Wall Street 16 years. The point is, if there's no stealing, we can't do business, Hashem. Meaning that once it affected their pocket, the nations didn't want it. Am Yisrael says, how much is it? Free, we'll take 2. So Torah has 611, it was given to Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael, the gematria value, the numerical value of the word Israel is 541. Yud is 10, Shin is 300, Resh is 200, Aleph is 1, and Lamed is 30. 541. Where did Am Yisrael start? With who? Yes, you could originally say it was Avraham, but in reality, it wasn't until Yaakov. Yaakov, name is Israel. And how did Yaakov officially start? Here in this Parsha. In this Parsha, he slept, he identified God. Oh, God, I'm going to serve you, I'm going to do whatever you want. Just protect me, give me food to eat, clothes to wear, that's it. I don't want anything else. And I'll give maaser, I'll give tzedakah, I'll give everything else, just Hashem protect me. Eventually, in a couple of weeks, we're going to see that Yaakov Avinu has 12 children. And those children have children. And eventually, when they go to Egypt, they go with how many souls they go to Egypt with? 70 souls. What is 70? The original Am Yisrael. It started with Yaakov. But then he has 70 people now. So this 70 plus Israel, there was 541. What does it equal? 611. Meaning that Israel plus the original 70 of the 70 people from Yaakov equals Torah. Meaning that what the Zohar Kadosh says, there's one creation that's inseparable. What is it? The Torah and Israel. Why? Because Kuchabrichu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, connected Am Yisrael, the Torah, to himself. Meaning that Hashem, Am Yisrael, and Torah, all one thing. They cannot separate. So what do you do when Am Yisrael doesn't want to fulfill this Torah? Then we have a problem. Why? Because Am Yisrael is not following the original agreement. Now Am Yisrael has had ups and downs throughout all of creation, all of our generations. But we always remember, most Jews remember the Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Another hint that Hashem Yitbarach and Am Yisrael are together, are united, is the word Echad. Echad, numerical value 13. The 12 tribes were the 12 sons of Yaakov Avinu, but then later on we see that Yaakov says, Ephraim Menashe, Kiruvenu v'Shimon Yuli. That Yosef's sons are now counted as 2 separate parts of the tribes, meaning we've gone from 12 to 13 tribes. So numerical value of Echad is 13 and 13 tribes. Meaning that another way that we see that Hashem is connected to Am Yisrael. But the one thing that we don't have is Achdut, unity, the Jewish unity. Why? Sometimes I tell people, listen, I'm going to do a shiur at such and such Bekneset. So, oh, it's Sephardi? Oh, it's Ashkenazi? Oh, it's this one? Oh, it's that one? I say, yeah, they're Jewish too. They're also Jewish. Believe it or not, there's also Ashkenazim that are also Jewish. I've met them. There's Sephardim, they're also Jewish. You never, it's unbelievable. They exist. People are always surprised. Oh, it's the other one? What's the other one? It's all the same thing. It's all shtuyot. It's all the same thing. Sfaradi, Litai, Chabad, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as long as we have the same Torah. It's not the same thing if we have a different Torah. So Achdut has a numerical value of 419. Israel has a numerical value again of 541. Together, the value is 960. 960 represents the number of 40 days. 40 days times 24 hours is 960. 40 is a significant number in the Torah, many times representing renewal. The Maharal Miprag, Alav Shalom, says that every time you see the number 40 in the Torah, whether it's at the time of Noach, 40 days, Hashem put the rain. Moshe Rabbeinu, 40 days, 40 nights. Even Goliath cursing Hashem for 40 days. This number 40 appears throughout the Torah from the beginning of the Tanakh all the way to the end many, many times. The Maharal Miprag says this is renewal. This is a sign that something is being renewed, refreshed. Hashem is changing something. He's changing creation. Which means that if we want the creation to change, we have to follow what it says. If the 960 represents two things, like I said, it represents Israel, but also represents Achdut. If we're all united, we can change creation, we can change the missiles, we can change the pogroms, we can change the Inquisition, we can change everything. But we have to be united. The problem that we have sometimes with this unity is that our opinion gets in the way. Many times I see people, they do teshuvah, but their family doesn't follow along. Sometimes a woman does teshuvah, but a husband still wants to drive on Shabbat. Sometimes a husband does teshuvah, but the wife still wants to go to the beach. Sometimes the kids do this. Sometimes there's different issues, there's different problems. How do you deal with these people? You love them, so you can't throw them outside. But at the same time, Rabbi Yonatan Eibishit says that the biggest sinat chinam, the biggest baseless hatred he's ever witnessed, is not the hatred between different sects of Judaism, of this one says he's Ashkenazi, this one says he's Sephardi, this one says he's Chabad, this one is this one. Oh, that's not it. Rabbi Yonatan Eibishit Alav Shalom says the biggest sinat chinam is when one Jew sees another Jew sinning, making a sin, driving on Shabbat, eating taref, and he doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything about it. That's sinat chinam. Why? Because if you know what it means to do a mitzvah, that any time you do a mitzvah, you're literally changing the world. You're creating a whole new world. One mitzvah creates an angel, but that angel is with you forever. That angel is going to protect you forever. Your olam haba just changed. Another world was added to it with a single mitzvah. But the opposite is the same too. One sin changes the world. A different, not such a friendly angel is created, who doesn't really like you so much, and doesn't really want to do good things for you. Meaning that any time you do a mitzvah, it has consequences in the world, even though you don't see it. We don't see radio waves, but we still use the radio. We don't see electricity, but we still use phones and electricity and so on. No one knows how an MRI machine works, but you still use it because you need it sometimes. Our actions have reactions, cause and effect. When a Jew understands what why Hashem keeps mentioning that you're supposed to fear Him, because there is consequences for sin and there is reward for mitzvot, then there's no way that we can stay quiet. But that doesn't mean that you start throwing rocks at anybody that drives on Shabbat. That doesn't mean that you start yelling at people in the streets, hey, Rasha, Rasha. No, that's not the way you do teshuvah. That's not how you get people to come closer. That's how you get them to run away. So let's understand, what does it mean to do teshuvah? First and foremost, when somebody really did teshuvah, doesn't matter how he started. Because there's many religious people that I know, they still haven't done teshuvah yet. But they call themselves religious. And there's many non-religious people that are actually tzaddikim. They just don't fulfill all the mitzvot yet. So teshuvah is not necessarily applicable to just people that don't keep. Teshuvah is for everyone. That's why Hashem repeats it in the Torah, you have to do teshuvah. Everybody has to do teshuvah. It doesn't say, oh, only this one, only that one, only this one. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin has a conversation between the Malach Gabriel and Hashem. Malach Gabriel comes to Hashem and he says, Hashem, when are you going to send Ben David? When are you going to send the Mashiach? Hashem says, like I wrote, like I said in the Torah, when they do teshuvah. Malach Gabriel says to Hashem, Hashem, you know well enough that it's never going to be that they're all going to do teshuvah. So Hashem says, okay, I'll lower the standards a little bit. When the religious people, the Bnei Torah, when they do teshuvah. He never says the Chilonim, the secular, the atheists, the reformed. No, he never said that. He says when the religious people, when they do teshuvah, I'll bring Mashiach. Malach Gabriel comes back to Hashem and says, Hashem, I'm sorry to tell you, but you know as well as I, it's never going to happen. They think they're fine. They think they're fine. Sometimes it's much easier to get a person that's an atheist to do teshuvah than someone that's Haredi. Why? The atheist knows there's something wrong. He just can't identify it. The Haredi is like, me? I'm like Moshe Rabbeinu of this generation. Look, I have a black hat and everything else. People think a uniform makes you religious. So Malach Gabriel comes back to Hashem. He says, Hashem, you know they're not going to do teshuvah, all of them. So Hashem says, okay, fine. I'll lower the standards. When one kehillah, when one bet knesset in the entire world does teshuvah, I'll bring Mashiach. Which means, Rabotai Yekarim, that for 2,000 years, we've been waiting for one bet knesset to do teshuvah. This is good news, but sad news at the same time. How many Batei Knesset do we have in the world? Which one of them doesn't have machloket? Which one of them doesn't have a board? Which one doesn't have some type of debate of who the rabbi should be? Which means that it could be, maybe this is the Beit Knesset that will do teshuvah and B'ezrat Hashem bring Mashiach. Who knows? It's in our hands. It's possible, but we have to do something about it. So the first and foremost, we have to identify what does it mean teshuvah, and the second thing we have to get to is how do we get everybody else to do it. So teshuvah doesn't necessarily mean that you change your clothes overnight. You're not required to wear black and white to do teshuvah. You're not required to wear black, like some people think, to do teshuvah. All you're required to do as a Jew is be modest. That's it. That's all that's required for a Jew, as far as your uniform. Whether you decide that your favorite color is green or blue or black, that's up to you. Enjoy all the colors. You read Eshet Chayil Yimtzayev every Friday night. What did she wear, Eshet Chayil? Purple. She wore purple. A lot of people think that in order for a woman to be religious, she has to look like a whale. One of these killer whales, maybe. Black and white, maybe. Or a penguin. She has to only wear black, maybe sometimes white. No, you can wear other colors. There's no problem. The exception of red is a little problematic. But aside from that, the main thing is modesty. So as far as uniform, it's a very, very different opinion than what people think. Second thing is, you must learn Torah. Why? There's no way that you're going to connect to Hashem and know what to do as a Jew without learning Torah. It's impossible. Why? Because Hashem said it. Hashem says, you want to get to know me? Learn my Torah. I wrote you a love letter. You call it Torah. Torah also means instructions. Instructions of how to live. Instructions of how to be married. Instructions of how to do business. Instructions of how to do everything and anything you want in life. It's all inside the Torah. If you want to know it, you want to connect to Hashem, you have to learn Torah. You have to learn Parsha Shavua every week. You have to learn basic halachot every day, a few things, at least 1, 2, 3, 5 halachot every day, whatever you can. Eventually, start learning some Gemara if you're a man, but at least learn how to be a Jew. It's not such a big deal. Even if you start off like I did, 15 minutes a day, you can get to become a decent Jew that knows what he's doing. You don't have to sit in a kollel from morning until midnight. You don't need to be Moshe Rabbeinu. 15 minutes a day, everybody has. Why? I know you have 24 hours. Start with 15 minutes a day. Eventually, if you actually do it every single day, you'll see that within a few months, you want more. Not that you think that you want more. Because once you connect to Torah, it's addictive. You want more than 15 minutes. So now all of a sudden, you're like, you know what? I actually have 115 minutes. Let me do 20. Then you want 25. Then you want an hour. Next thing you know, maybe you will be Moshe Rabbeinu. Who knows? But the point is you have to start somewhere. 15 minutes a day. You need to learn the instructions. Women also need to learn the instructions. They also need to learn Torah because they need to know why should they continue keeping Shabbat. Why should they send their kids to a school that's more expensive? Why should they send their husbands to go learn Torah? Why should they wear this clothes that sometimes it makes them hot in theory? Why should they do all this stuff? Why should they cover their hair and look different than most people in the world? So they need to learn Torah also. So we learn about HaShem, we learn His instructions, but the biggest thing in teshuvah, the biggest part, is to recognize that everything we did before is wrong. And that's the toughest part. That's the toughest part for most people. Most people look at their past and they're proud of it. Tell them, oh yeah, when I was your age, I went out with 20 girls. According to the Torah, it's nothing to be proud of. Oh, and this business deal, yeah, I got the guy. That's not exactly something to be proud of. Meaning that the Torah is going to teach you that there's certain things to be proud of, there's certain things not to be proud of. When a person does teshuvah, eventually their goal is to become disgusted by sin. Meaning it's not that he doesn't think that the woman is not attractive. No, it's that he's disgusted with the immodesty. So much that the thought of attraction is not even there. He's disgusted by the fact that the woman is walking around so immodestly because of how it makes HaShem feel, that he doesn't think about whether she's attractive, not attractive. He immediately, by like a reflex, looks away. He's disgusted by things that are wrong morally, to the point that it doesn't make him attracted to it at all. And it's like a light bulb turned on in his head. But there are certain things that until you get disgusted by them, you're still going to like them. And that's why Rabban Gamliel says a person should never say that he doesn't want to eat pig, or he doesn't want to make other sins. Why? Because the reality is at this stage you still like pig. At this stage you still like immodesty. You still like the sin. So don't say you don't like it, because that's a lie. Why should you say, what could I do that my Father in heaven said no? He said no, I'm scared, so I'm not going to do it. Because that's the truth right now. Until we get this scared. But this, Rabotai, will lead us to the next point. What is the difference between a person that did teshuvah and everybody else around him? The person that did teshuvah has arrived at a point where he's disgusted with his past. He's disgusted of things that are the opposite of the truth. He's disgusted by lies. Meaning as soon as he sees Christian teachings, he wants to vomit. Because he knows it's idolatry. He doesn't want to befriend them, invite them to the house, go to their parties, share it. He doesn't want to do that. Why? He says, listen, you may be a nice guy, or at least you're trying to be, but you're an idol worshiper. And that's disgusting to HaShem. So he's not going to necessarily go beat the guy up, but he's not necessarily going to befriend him either. So a lot of times when you see certain people that call themselves religious, but they're befriending the Christian organizations, or they bring them into AIPAC or the Jewish Federation because they like their money, that's not a good example. Why? Because it shows us we're not exactly disgusted by what they do. Especially the missionary work they do, which is to capture Jews and to make them Christians. If you're not disgusted by that, we should question our own Judaism. Your brothers and sisters are becoming of the Avodah Zarah. They're worshipping idols now because these missionaries have a free right to do whatever they want. If we're not disgusted by that, what are we going to be disgusted by? So the point is that the Baal Teshuvah is disgusted with the shekel. He's disgusted with the political correctness, with the things that are literally just are against the Torah. But that doesn't mean that everybody else is. And that leads us to the next point. Even though you did teshuvah, and you want your whole family to do teshuvah, it doesn't mean that they see the same thing. And that's what you have to remember all the time. You see it clearly. You see that the pig is tarif, it's gone nefesh, disgusting, ew, this. He still thinks it's delicious. Like we did a day before we saw the truth. A day before you saw the truth, you also thought the pig was delicious. A day before you saw the truth, you also thought going to the beach on Shabbat is perfectly fine. A day before you saw the truth, you saw no problem going to a church even. Why? They're such nice people. They don't even talk in church. Alvai, we did the same thing in synagogue. You go to a church, no one talks. And everybody gives maser, by the way. That's why they're able to build 50,000 people stadiums. A day before we saw the truth, we were just like everybody else. And that's what we have to remind ourselves of. Just because you see it, it doesn't mean they don't, that they do, which means that you have to sympathize. You have to realize, okay, I see it, so it's as clear as day to me that the sky is blue, that HaShem runs the world, that non-kosher is disgusting, that idolatry is gross, that stealing is bad. It's easy for me to see it. How do I get them to see it? If I tell them, listen, it's disgusting, they're going to tell me, disgusting to you. It's not disgusting to me. It's my opinion, your opinion, you have your own opinion. Which means that by telling them that it's disgusting by itself, it's not going to help you. By yelling at them, it's going to make it even worse. Why? I'm going to tell you what, what's just because I don't agree with you, you're going to start yelling at me? Just because I want to drive on Shabbat, you're going to make me into some devil? Well, I'm a terrible person now all of a sudden? So yelling and screaming at people is not going to help you, especially if they're your family. So the first and foremost is that we have to understand, where did they stand? They stand where we were a day before we saw the truth. That already lowers the ego that we have, because now we think we're like a mini Moshe Rabbeinu. Everybody does teshuvah, automatically becomes Mashiach. I get an email from at least 2 Mashiachs a week. Everybody, and usually they don't really know much, but they think they're convinced they're Mashiach. 2. Last week I actually had 3. Last week I had, I'm not joking, I'll show you the emails. 3 people told me they're Mashiach last week. But 2 were Ben David, 1 of them was Ben Yosef. People think they lose their mind. Because they start keeping Shabbat, learn a little Torah, all of a sudden, listen, I'm the most righteous person in the world. I'm going to save Am Yisrael. Okay, so save them. Oh no, I need some money. Can you raise some money for me? I'm like, no, Mashiach doesn't need any money. That's a sign. You're not Mashiach. Mashiach doesn't need any money. Everybody does teshuvah. If they don't have a rabbi, they could lose themselves. And that's why the Gemara says, a person who doesn't have a rabbi, HaShem hates him. Why? Because if he doesn't have someone to direct him in his teshuvah, in his avodat Hashem, that means that he has a lot of ga'ava, he has a lot of arrogance, to the extent that he could live a life full of sins without even a single chance of doing teshuvah. Why? Because no one's ever going to tell him he's wrong, because he has no rabbi. And that's why the HaChaim have said it time and time again, that the first and most important thing that a person needs to do is when he does teshuvah is get himself a rabbi. What does it mean, get yourself a rabbi? Get yourself somebody that not only you respect their knowledge, but somebody that you're willing to put your head down, whatever they say, whether you like it, dislike it, agree with it, disagree with it, it's the same thing as if God said it. You have to do it as a Jew. It's an obligation, it's a Mishnah in Avot. Without a rabbi, there's no teshuvah. There's no teshuvah. To such an extent that some of the Chachamim said, if you're not going to have a rabbi, don't do teshuvah. Don't do it at all. It's waste. Why? Because right now you're a sinner. After you think you did teshuvah, you can become a bigger sinner. in the name of the Torah. So first and foremost, we have to do teshuvah. We have to identify who we were, but we have to know what tools we need. First tool we need to get a rabbi. It's going to give us direction. Why is this rabbi really important to help other people? Because the rabbi is going to tell you, if he's a good rabbi, whether you're capable of all the things that you think you're capable of. Whether you should learn the Zohar or not, whether you should learn the Gemara or not, whether you should not sleep at night as much as an average person sleeps, whether you should tell your wife she should put kisui rosh on or not, the scarf, whether you should tell her that she should dress modestly or maybe somebody else should tell her, whether you should tell your kids yes or no, he's going to direct you because he knows you. He knows your weaknesses. He knows your strengths. And more times than not, he's going to tell you the truth, which is that you shouldn't do it directly. You should do it indirectly. Because the people that are most close to you, or that are closest to you, usually will not want to listen to you. And the reason why is because they're always going to remember you a day before you did teshuvah. They're going to remember you going to the beach with them. And say, oh, all of a sudden you're Moshe Rabbeinu. Last week you were Korach, now you're Moshe Rabbeinu. Last week you were Esav with me. You want to be Yaakov all of a sudden? Okay, you be Yaakov. Don't, mind your business. They don't believe that it's real, even though you've been doing it for 10 years. Most of the time, your closest people are not going to want to listen to you. So it's a terrible idea to get them to do teshuvah with your own words, which means you have to give them the message indirectly, different way. How? You bring them to a shiur like this. You give them a CD, which I brought you guys some. You send them a video. You send them a link. You get them the message through somebody else. Why? Because as great as you are, they don't want to listen to you. Which means that if you really care about the message, this is exactly what you're going to do. You're going to take a CD, you're going to give it to the people that you love, you tell them, listen, this is interesting. Why? I don't know. You're going to find it interesting. And then pray to HaShem they listen to it. And pray again that they actually accept it. That's if you care about the message. But if you care about your ego, you're not going to give anybody a CD. What you're going to do, you're going to start yelling at them nonstop. Yeah, you should do this, you do this. Why? Look, it says in the book, it says in the book. Okay, it says in the book, but who are you? Maybe you're defining it the wrong way. Like, when did you become a rabbi? You did teshuvah last week. How'd you have time? So, first thing we have to understand is that they don't see what we see. You did teshuvah, you see it clearly. They don't see it. Second thing is, remember, they don't want to listen to you. Why? Because they don't see you as you are now. They see you as you were a day before you did teshuvah. So we have to remove our ego, throw it in the garbage for a little while, and just worry about how do I get the message to these people. The third thing is you have to remember what Rabbi Yonatan says, which is that Sinat Chinam, the what destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, is not telling them anything. Which means that you can't ever get to a point where you give up. And that's what a lot of people do. They start, they give somebody a CD, they send a link, they tell somebody something, and they get negative feedback. They get negative feedback. Oh, I don't want to listen. Don't send me anymore. I hate it. There's an argument. So, you know what? I'm just not going to say anything. That is not what you're supposed to do. You're never supposed to give up on them. Why? Because if you know the magnitude of the sin and what it means in Shamayim, it's like a train. It's coming straight at the person. And the least you can do is tell them, move out of the way. Move out of the way. You're driving on Shabbat. Driving on Shabbat is much worse than a train hitting you. So you can't just say nothing. You have to figure out a more clever way to do it. Okay, I tried saying it to them. He didn't like it. She didn't like it. Okay, so how else can I do it? Oh, let me try to send him a shiur. Oh, I sent a shiur. She didn't listen. Okay, let me send another one. Oh, she listened, but she hated the rabbi. Okay, so let me send her a different rabbi. And you try different creative ways to get them to do something. And trust me when I tell you, if you do it enough times out of love, you'll succeed. And the reason why is because the Torah promises us. The Gemara in Masechet Brachot has one of the biggest Baalei Teshuvah in history. His name was Resh Lakish.
Resh Lakish says, anyone that wants to inherit Torah has to be willing to die for it. Meaning, sacrifice is necessary in order for your Torah to succeed. What sacrifice do we need to get our families to start keeping Shabbat? What sacrifice do we need in order to get our family to keep kashrut? What sacrifice do we need to get our women to start wearing clothes? What sacrifice? Sacrifice is our ego. Take your ego, throw it in the garbage. And realize the number one mission here is to get them to do mitzvot, even if it means that they're never going to realize it came from me. Even if they never give me credit for it. In fact, even if they hate me for it. No problem. Just get them to do mitzvot. Why? Because that's going to save them eternally. Once you have the right intentions, that's how you're going to get the bracha. That's how you get the atzlacha and you get the HaShem to get involved and say, oh, you're willing to sacrifice? Then I'm willing to sacrifice. And this, Rabotai Yekarim, is how you get Am Yisrael to become connected, to become united. This is one of the things that we lack. We lack today. Because everybody has their ego fooling them, thinking, no, I have a better way, I do this way, I do that way. Everybody has their own way. It doesn't mean that your way is going to work for everyone. Some of my lectures are like what you see today. Some of my lectures are very scary. I talk about Gehinom, I talk about punishment, talk about stuff that most people don't really want to listen to. We have to listen to it, but we don't want to. No one wants to talk about that type of stuff. Some of my lectures are somewhere in between. I talk to you about Gehinom, but I make you laugh at the same time. So you're like laughing inside Gehinom. Oh, it's kind of fiery, but it's kind of funny too. It's confused. Point is, Rabotai, is that we have a mix. Some of the lectures work for some people. Some of the lectures work for other people. The key is that it works for somebody. It's never going to work for everyone. There's never going to be a full crowd of everybody says, oh yeah, we all love what he said. Some will like it, some will hate it. The key is that you remove your ego and don't look for fans, don't look for applause, don't look for anything. Look for one person to be motivated, Bezrat Hashem, next time another person, next time another person, next time another person, and collect them. Rabbi Yisrael Misalant used to say about 200 years ago, if I give a lecture to 1,000 people and only one of them does teshuvah, I did my job. Where did he get it from? He got it from the Rambam. The Rambam says in Moreh Nevuchim, if I give a lecture to 10,000 people, knowing already ahead of time that only one person is even interested in doing teshuvah, only one person is going to listen to me, I did my job. I only came for that one person. And I care less about the other 9,999. Why? They weren't looking for the truth anyway. Meaning, it didn't matter whether I came to talk to them or I didn't. They were looking to just come for entertainment. The one guy was looking to do teshuvah, I came to help him. So don't look for everyone to love you. Don't look for anyone to, applaud to you. Just look to help people, one at a time. But always remember that your method may not work for them. So don't have such an ego that's so big and say, no, if it doesn't work this way, then I'm not going to help you anymore. Find another way. What you said didn't work for them, find out what somebody else said. Maybe somebody else will talk to them. With family and friends, it's very difficult to get them to do teshuvah yourself because, again, like I said, they remember you as in your past. So to even try too much to do it directly could have a negative effect. So the best thing to do is to bring him to a lecture or to give him a CD. To strangers, people you don't know, first time you ever saw him in shul, or you saw him at the kosher place, at the restaurant or something, much easier. And the reason why is because there's no ego between you. He doesn't remember you anything different than what you are today. You don't really care or know what he did yesterday. Meaning there's no judgment between you. There's no judgment, there's no ego. He's thinking, why does this Jew care about what kind of food I eat? Why does this Jew care if I go to shul or not? Why does this Jew care if I drive to the beach or I drive to the Knesset on Shabbat? Why does he care if I drive Bechlal? What, he gets money out of the traffic control, one less car on the road? Like, why does he care if I drive on Shabbat? Once a logical person thinks, he doesn't get a benefit. He doesn't get I'm not giving him any money. I'm not doing anything for him. He starts thinking to himself, he must really care. For no reason. That's achdut. That's unity. That's real unity. Unity that's accepting everyone the way they are is not unity. That's sheker. That's lies. Why? Because we already know from the Torah, there's no such thing as Am Yisrael without Torah. Meaning, if your fellow, if your brother, even if he's your brother biologically, is a Mechalel Shabbat, according to the Torah, he's not your brother. According to the Torah, he's not your brother. Why? Because when it says, Ve'avta le're'echa kamocha, you love your brother as yourself, the Chachamim explain, your brother in mitzvot. Another Jew that keeps mitzvot. Why? Because the Jew that doesn't keep mitzvot, unfortunately, excludes himself from the nation. Where do we learn this from? In many places in the Torah, but one of the places is the time that Hashem declares us as a nation. In Parashat Kitavo, Hashem Yitbarach in chapter 27 says the following. Ushma Yisrael ayom hazeh niyeta le'am la'Adonai Elohecha. In chapter 27, verse 9, Hashem Yitbarach says to the people, this day you have become a people to Hashem your God. You've become a Am. Niyeta le'am, you've become a nation. Now if we fast forward, a little bit forward, to chapter 32, we see, what if we don't become a Am? What if we don't listen to this Torah? If we don't listen to this Torah, in Parashat Azinu, which means to listen, to hear what Hashem says, what happens if we don't listen? What happens if we don't want to hear Him? I'm not going to go over all the punishments, but I'm going to go over what you saw in the news today, yesterday, and the day before. Hashem says to the people, Em kin'uni belo el ke'asuni behevlehem ve'ani aknihem belo am. They provoked me with a non-God, they angered me with their vanities, so I shall provoke them with a non-people. With a vile nation shall I anger them. Meaning, if we don't want to listen to Torah, we don't want to follow the Torah, what does Hashem says? You don't want to be a nation that follows Torah? I'm going to punish you with a non-nation. What's a non-nation? A nation without a flag, i.e. ISIS, i.e. Palestinians, i.e. Hamas. They're not a real nation. There's no nation in history that's called Palestinians, or Hamas, or ISIS. This is not a nation, it's a non-people. Their only mission in life is to be an enemy of God, to be an enemy of the Jewish people. That's it. That's their only purpose in life. They don't have a country, they don't have a civilization, they don't have civilized behavior, nothing. Their only function in the world is to go against Am Yisrael. Which means that the rockets we see in the news, or if you live in Israel and you're watching this, the rockets you see is exactly because we are not united as a people. How do we unite as a people? We unite with the Torah. We unite with the mitzvot. So if you see your brother is not keeping Torah and mitzvot, to just not say anything to him is not unity. To just accept him as he is because he was born this way, it's not being a brother to him. You have to get him closer to Hashem. You have to find a clever way to do it. Sometimes it's by giving him a lecture. Sometimes it's taking him to a lecture. Sometimes it's giving him a CD. Sometimes it's doing something else. But you have to find some way to do it. That's kiruv. That's how you get people to do teshuvah. In so many words, care. You want to get people to do teshuvah? You have to care. But not about your ego. Not about that people look at you a certain way. Oh, wow, your daughter's not religious? Oh, man, wow, what happened? If you care more about your neighbors than your daughter, do me a favor, don't tell her anything. You're worse than her. Because you care about the people instead of Hashem. You have to care about her. The fact that she's not keeping Shabbat. The fact that she's going out with a goya or a goy or something like that. That's what you have to care about. So find a way to get to her. Even if it's not directly, it's indirectly. And that means, Rabotai, is that we have to remove ourselves from it. We just have to worry about the mission. That's how the rockets are going to stop. That's how all the stuff that's horrible in the world is going to stop. That's unity. We take the ora'ah, the instruction set of Hashem, and we use it to get Hashem to have mercy on us. Now, everyone knows that I don't ask for money when I come give lectures because I know money is the Yetzirah of this generation. Hashem says that unfortunately, at the end of days, we're going to replace him with Elohei HaKesef, Elohei HaZahav. We're going to replace Hashem with the God of money and God of gold. Meaning, we're going to worry so much about money, we're going to forget about God. As soon as the people hear there's a price, they don't want to come. Oh no, he's just coming because of the money. As soon as people hear of a price, that means, okay, so you're going to charge, okay, so you're going to do whatever I tell you. You become an employee. So the first thing we do is we erase the whole concept of money. But I'm not asking anyone for money. But I'm asking you for one favor. And that's your time. Just your time. Now this parasha that you're going to read this week, B'ezrat Hashem, throughout the week, and then again on Shabbat, is one of the sources for Maaser. One of the sources for Maaser. Don't worry, you can hold on to your pockets. This is free. Now, in this parasha, Yaakov Avinu, as we mentioned before, says to Hashem, please protect me. Give me food to eat. Give me clothes to wear. V'kol asher titen li aser asrenu lach. And whatever you give me, I shall repeatedly give maaser, a tithe, 10% out of it to you. Now, Rav Moshe Feinstein, alav shalom, says that maaser doesn't only mean money. Of course, money is necessary. And the Zohar Kadosh says that the reason why many people end up converting to Judaism is not necessarily because their heart is so pure and they want to do mitzvot. Not because their brain is differently than the rest of the goyim and they want to go learn Torah. No. It's because they gave tzedakah to a Talmid Chacham one time. They gave tzedakah, the goy gave tzedakah to a Talmid Chacham, that earned him the merit to be a Jew. To such an extent. So even though money is necessary to get people to do teshuvah, even more than money, it's caring. Even more than money is time. And people value their time. So Rav Moshe Feinstein said that a Jew shouldn't only give money as maaser, but he should also give his time. Contribute his time for the purpose of doing kiruv, for the purpose of fulfilling Torah. So to be a shutaf, to be a partner with you in your time, I brought 500 CDs. Each person, take 5, take 10, take 25, and give them to people. Doesn't have to be your uncle, your aunt, or your son, or your daughter. Just somebody that's a Jew. Give it to them. They ask you, what is it about? Just say it's interesting. Don't start telling them, no, he said this, you may ruin it. Just tell them, here, listen to this. What's the worst going to happen? You're going to press stop? That's it. Each packet has 2 CDs in it. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 hours worth of Torah in there. Shurim like this, shurim that are different, long ones, short ones. Take a CD. Each person should take a pack. Each pack has 50, which is 25 pairs. Each one of these boxes is 50, so it's 25 pairs. And you should have in your office, in your house, and somewhere, and make it something that you do. You take a CD and you give it to somebody. Take a CD, you give it to the neighbor. Take a CD, take it to the JCC, to your shul, to somewhere, and give it to people. You never know. You never know. Maybe that CD is the only way that person is going to do teshuvah. There's countless stories that people tell me of how they did teshuvah from our CDs. Yishtabach Shimolad. The stories get better and better each time. One time a person tells me he found my CD in the Kotel HaMa'aravi. There was one CD there in English. She speaks English. And there was one CD in English. Which CD? My CD. And that's what she needed to do teshuvah, change her entire life. Another person tells me that he found my CD somewhere actually in California. But not exactly a Jewish community. Another person in Atlanta. Another person in Saudi Arabia. Somebody found my CD in Saudi Arabia somehow. How it got there, I have no idea. Hashem sent it there. And the right person picked it up and did teshuvah. The point is, Rabotai, is that somebody cared enough to put it there. That's the only thing I'm asking you to do. Care enough to give it to somebody. Take 5, take 10, take 20, take as many as you can. But give it to them. B'ezrat Hashem, once you start caring for Hashem's other children that you're not connected to, B'ezrat Hashem will start caring about your children that you can't connect to because they don't want to listen sometimes. This, Rabotai, is a little bit of instructions of where we were, where we are, and B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully where we're going. Any questions? Same price. Ken.
You talked about unity amongst all Jews, but when you look at the different factions of Judaism, there's no unity there.
Ken.
And they're not doing teshuvah.
Right.
So are you going to the Orthodox people and doing Kerub there?
I do anywhere that they invite me. Anywhere that someone is willing to listen to me. I'll do it in a jail, I'll do it in a mental institution, I'll do it in a synagogue, I'll do it anywhere, as long as I'm welcome and as long as it's not a place of idolatry.
But what I'm saying is, if people see this non-unity amongst a lot of our Orthodox and conservative and whatever, don't you think that, say, well, if they can't do it, why should we do it? If they're so holy, and if they're Talmud Chachams, you know, why are Haredis fighting each other when everybody knows it's wrong and they're still fighting?
Yes. There's a pasuk in the book of Isaiah that says, "B'piv v'sfatav kibduni v'dibor yichak mimeni." In their mouth and their lips, they paid me lip service, meaning they showed me respect, but in their hearts was very, very far from me. Like we said before, many people look the part, but they don't act the part. What do we learn from there? We learned that technically Judaism does not depend on the Jews. It doesn't. Judaism depends on the Torah. Halachically, if there's a Jewish mother and she has a baby, even if the father is not Jewish, halachically the boy will be, or the girl will be, that's born, will be a Jew. Or at least qualified to be a Jew as long as they fulfill Torah and mitzvot. But there was one time in history that we learned in last week's Parsha, one woman, one stomach, one's a Jew, one's a Goy. One's Esav and one's Yaakov. Same stomach. From here we learn that Judaism doesn't just depend on the mom being Jewish. Judaism depends on what happens after they're born, after people are born, after they do what they're doing, if they follow the Torah. Judaism officially began in Mount Sinai when we received the Torah, and Am Yisrael accepted the Torah, which means that if Am Yisrael decided that they don't want the Torah, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says that Hashem would have destroyed all of them. They wouldn't have a right to exist. Which means that the Torah is the purpose of the world, and the Jews are supposed to fulfill it. If the Jews didn't want to fulfill it, there would be no purpose for the Jews. The Torah would still be the same. Torah wouldn't change. Torah is still perfect. So even though there are many Jews, whether they're religious or non-religious, doesn't really mean that much anymore, because there's many Jews out there that are doing right, and there's many Jews doing wrong. How do we determine right and wrong? Many Jews following the Torah, many Jews are going against the Torah. Right is going for the Torah, wrong means against the Torah. Sometimes they look like they're supposed to follow the Torah, but not exactly. They're throwing rocks at people on Shabbat, thinking that that's going to make people keep Shabbat because they throw rocks on them. Little do they know that if they actually spent, instead of throwing rocks at people on Shabbat, they would actually learn halachot Shabbat. They would realize that they are mechalel Shabbat also by throwing a rock, because a rock is muktzeh. And you're not allowed to throw a rock. So instead of throwing a rock, you'd learn halachot Shabbat. You realize you're a sinner just like the guy you're throwing a rock at him. What does that mean? That means that that person cares more about their ego and being right than they care about the other person doing teshuvah. So we can't fix the world overnight. What can we fix? First thing we have to fix is ourselves, the person we see in the mirror. You see in the mirror, okay, everyone knows we have chesronot. We have things that are deficient. Some of us are deficient in our knowledge. Some of us are deficient in our midot, our character traits. some of it on other things. So everyone, pick one thing. You can't fix everything. There's a bunch of things. You look in the mirror, you see, oh wait, sometimes you're closer to Haman and we're closer to Mordechai. Fine. That's how we started. Then we start doing teshuvah. Pick something to fix. You start fixing yourself one thing. As you're fixing yourself, that's what you start teaching other people or getting other people to do also after you fixed it. Don't start teaching people to keep Shabbat if you're not keeping Shabbat. Don't start telling people to never be angry if you're angry all the time. Meaning, try to influence people to do something that you're already doing good. Because then they're not going to say you're a hypocrite. Now, if we're all going to wait for us to be perfect before we start telling people to do teshuvah, it's never going to happen. Because by the time we get to perfect, HaShem takes us out of this world. You can't be perfect and live in this world. So we just have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things good. And then start getting the other people to do the same thing. And don't worry about what everybody else is doing. First we worry about ourselves, then we try to worry about the people in our circle. Everyone has a friend, a cousin, a nephew, a wife, a husband, a neighbor, a colleague, somebody you know. And you know that somebody probably has a similar issue than you. You worked on your anger and now you're not angry anymore because you have emunah in HaShem. Okay, pick that and show him how you stop being angry. You had no emunah? Okay, teach him how to get to emunah. And so on and so forth. Don't worry about what the Charedim that are fighting among each other are doing, what the reforms are doing, and what everybody else is doing. Worry about him. Focus on him. Because if every single one of us here focus just on one person in the next 2 months, that means there's going to be another 50, 60 Baalei Teshuvah. Now that next person is also going to say, oh, I like what you did. I like what you did. I'm going to do it also. Now you're going to start with somebody else. You're not going to keep going the same guy. You're finished. He started doing teshuvah. He's on fire. He wants to do more now. Now he wants to teach. Next thing you know, in 6 months from now, we have 500 people do teshuvah. Next time I come here, 10,000 people did teshuvah. Why? Because one person led to another, to another, to another, to another. Why? Because everybody worried about the person they see in the mirror and one other person. That's it. Don't try to fix all of Am Yisrael in one night. One person. This, Rabotai, is the secret. Because once we start spreading ourselves too thin, it becomes too difficult. And it gets to a point where it's overwhelming. Try to focus on one person. How do you know who to focus on? HaShem will give you directions. HaShem will give you the siyat d'ishmaya if you're doing it purely from your heart for the right reason. HaShem will give you a feedback. So how do you do it? You take, let's say, a box of CDs. You give it to 25 people. Many of them are not going to listen. In fact, some of them will throw it in the garbage. Don't worry, it's okay. We expect it. Every 1,000 CDs, we're not expecting 1,000 people to listen to them. If 200 listen, that's already huge. If 100 listen, it's amazing. Out of the 100 people, out of the 1,000 that listen, if 10 do teshuvah, we're the greatest in the world. And the reason why is because the Torah tells us that if you get one person to do teshuvah, im tavi yakar mizolel kepi tiyeh. If you get one person to do teshuvah, you will be like my mouth. Meaning Hashem tells us, whatever you say, you pray for, I'll fulfill it. Meaning your prayers now officially take VIP status. Everybody comes to Beit Knesset and they pray to Hashem, but a lot of us pray and nothing happens. We feel sometimes between us, we feel like we're praying to a wall. You pray, nothing happens. You want VIP status, you want miracles to happen in your life, whether it's parnasah, or zivug, or shidduch for your kids, or what health, whatever it is, you want miracles, you get other people to do teshuvah. That's how you do it. I see miracles every day. I always tell people, anytime you have like some type of problem and you're like, emunah issue, you want a miracle, call me or text me, I'll give you a story every day. Either it's my miracle or it's somebody else. Every single day there's a new miracle. You just have to appreciate them and see what they are. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small. I'll tell you a couple of stories so you have an idea what kind of miracles we're talking about. One time, first time we printed CDs, I said that we needed some money, so we posted it on on the internet. We're looking to raise some money. First person said, I want to donate $1,000 because I know the shurim work. It helped me. Da da da. I want to donate $1,000. I said, okay. I didn't make such a big deal of it. Thank you very much. And that's it. We moved on. 3 days later, the person calls me and says, I want to tell you a story. I said, what's the story? He says, my son, for the last 8 weeks, has been going back and forth to the hospital because his ear was hurting him. Little 2-year-old kid. His ear was hurting him, and we took him to the doctor, and the doctor says he has a growth. He has a growth in there, HaShem Yachem, and there has to be a surgery. So for the last 8 weeks, we've been going back and forth, checking, HaShem Yachem, what kind of punishment is this in Shamayim? Have a 2-year-old have a surgery. So he said we did all these checks, and the day that he called me, he says this was the last check that we're supposed to do before having a surgery next week. My wife just came back from the hospital, crying, telling me it's gone. I didn't understand what she said. And she said, I took our son, 2-year-old, to the doctor. The doctor took all the machine, took all the pictures, and then he asked the mom, where's the kid? She says, no, it's him. She goes, no, where's your son though? The one that had the growth. She goes, this is it. The other one is 2 months old. So you can't switch them. It's just one. This one is 2 years old. He says, well, he has a different head now. He has a different head. Because the head that we took a picture of last week had the growth that we have to have a surgery in 2 days. This head has nothing. Baruch Hashem, 2 years have passed, it hasn't come back, and it never will come back. Meaning that when the person gave tzedakah for kiruv to get other people to do teshuvah, he didn't think about, oh, this is going to heal my son. Who even thinks like that? He said, other people don't keep Shabbat or don't have good midot, even if they keep Torah, they don't have good midot. They need to do teshuvah for something. Let me contribute. He didn't know that Hashem is going to change nature for him, but Hashem did. Hashem did. Another person that saw our shurim, started learning Torah, said that he wants to convert to Judaism. Only problem is he lives in a country that simply does not have Jews. Or at least he didn't think there was. 2 years ago, I did a shiur, 600 people, on Tisha B'Av in New York, and many people saw the shiur on the internet. One of the people was in his country. And I actually told the story about him, that he's this goy that wants to convert to Judaism, really has made major sacrifices in his life, went and did a Brit Milah as an adult, and even though he did a Brit Milah, instead of going to and resting for a few days, instead he was spending his time doing kiruv, spreading Torah on the internet. I said, such a person, alvai, we have more Jews like this. Well, apparently, a Jew in his country, in Bulgaria, at the end of the world, was watching the shiur. Contacted me and he says, we want to meet this kid. We want to meet this non-Jew. Why? Because we have a small little keilah in the middle of nowhere in Bulgaria and we want to add him to our keilah. Meaning Hashem created a keilah in the middle of Bulgaria for this guy. Why? Because he cared about Hashem's kids. Stories like this, Rabotai, I see every week. People that spend time, efforts, resources on getting Am Yisrael to do teshuvah, Hashem promises them no end to their blessing. To such an extent that the Chovot HaLevavot, one of the top and most important and holy Musar books and just overall Kedusha books that we have in Am Yisrael, says that even if a person has gone to the level of holiness and Torah like Moshe Rabbeinu, even if he's perfected his midot like an angel, he will never be at the level of a person that gets other people to do teshuvah. Why? That person has a class of their own. Now, he doesn't say that that person has to be a speaker or that person has to be a billionaire. He just says anyone that cares enough about Am Yisrael that he spends time, effort, resources, whatever he has, he spends it on getting other people to do teshuvah. That's what's required. Baruch Hashem, in our generation, you can get other people to do teshuvah for free. You have time, you go on the internet, you share a lecture. You have money, you spend money. You don't have money, you don't have to use money. The point is that we all have the ability to do it. We just have to care. Now, all of us have a cousin, or a son, or a daughter, or a wife, or somebody we know that we want them to do teshuvah, but we just can't get to them. If you want Hashem to get to them, get Hashem's other kids to do teshuvah. Once you get Hashem's other kids to do teshuvah, trust me when I tell you, just write it down. Within a short period of time, that other person all of a sudden is going to start doing teshuvah. Why? Because you start caring about Hashem's other children, he'll start caring about your children. This is the only way to do it. We can't fix every keilah, we can't fix every problem that we have in Am Yisrael, but we can fix ourselves and we can fix one person. Once we fix another person, little by little, you start getting closer to that prophecy where eventually one keilah will do teshuvah. One keilah does teshuvah, Mashiach will come, Be'ezrat Hashem will bring us good. Any other questions? Yes?
So Yaakov gave 10%, right? 10 a tip, right?
Okay.
And we know that the Gaon of Vilna says that 20% brings quite a lot of blessing, and that's like act of piety. So considering that he was a patriarch, why may it be that he didn't give that much rather than?
No, I mean they didn't necessarily say that he gave only 10%. He said aser asrenu. The Gaon of Vilna says that in reality, 10% Hashem guarantees that if a person gives 10% of their income, Hashem guarantees that they'll have bracha, atzlacha, and so on. But the Gaon of Vilna got a chidush, says that it has to be 20% because it says aser asrenu. It says 10 twice. It says it here. It says it later on in the book of Job and a few other places. It always says asher ta'asher, meaning that if you also want to be materially wealthy in this life, you have to give 20%. So it doesn't necessarily say that Yaakov Avinu gave a tithe of 10 or 20. It's that we say that minimum it's supposed to be 10, but in order to be actually rich in this life, the Gaon of Vilna says that it's supposed to be 20%. Either way, in our generation, Alvai people gave 1%. Because the reality is people, unfortunately, they always have money for bills and new phones and navigation systems and basketball games. But when it comes to Torah, Talmidei Chachamim, everybody's poor. Nobody has any money. So if a person cares, they'll find a way. If a person loves Hashem, they'll find a way. Because they'll understand that their money is really not theirs. As soon as a person thinks that they're making the money, or they like money, giving maaser or giving even 2% is difficult for them. Baruch Hashem, I have many, many students all over the world. The following, Baruch Hashem, continues to grow, but not everybody donates. A lot of people donate their time to watch the shiurim. A lot of people donate their time maybe to spread the shiurim to different people, but not everybody donates to money. So obviously it cannot be that everybody's homeless. They have enough money to pay for a phone. And it can't be that everybody's poor, they all live in a house. It's just that not everybody's ready yet to separate themselves from their money. They like it too much. They like it more than they like spending it on kiruv. And the reason why is because the Yetzer Hara will give you all types of ideas that you can do something better with it. You could buy a book, or you could buy this, you could do other things with it. And we fall for it. That's also why many times you see that people donate a huge amount of money, for example, to buy a Sefer Torah. I know I did it when I was not religious. The only thing that I donated money for was a Beit Knesset or a Sefer Torah. So one time I donated, I don't know, it was like $60,000, $70,000 for a Sefer Torah. And you say, oh wow, big mitzvah, great. Well, okay, great, it is great. It's a good mitzvah. But if the Beit Knesset already has 3, 4, or 5 Sifrei Torah, it's not exactly a big mitzvah. Why? We don't need it. You only need one. It's better you take the 60,000 and get 10, 20 Talmidei Chachamim to live for a year. Or you get 10,000 people to do teshuvah with that kind of money. So again, why do people do it? For the same reason I did it. When you give a Sefer Torah, or you give it to a Beit Knesset, for example, everybody sees. Wow, look, Yaron donated a Sefer Torah, Chazak u'Baruch, what a tzaddik, I was driving on Shabbat, what are you talking about? What tzaddik? But that's the thing. It's the whole show-off. Oh, look, his name is on the Beknesset now. Everybody knows. So it's part of show-off. So, Kiruv, there's no show-off. Why? Most people don't even know you donate. Most people don't know you donate. Why? We don't put anything on the website. Oh, yeah, such and such donated $10,000 this month. Nobody knows you donated. Meaning it's purely between you and God. God knows that you donated. And even though this lack of pride lowers the amount of donors, because people like to get their name known to the whole world, it improves the effect. Because that means that whoever actually donates for Kiruv, it's purely for the mitzvah itself and it has success. So, what I would say for most people, don't start. If you're not giving maaser, if you're not giving 10% right now, don't start with 10%. Start with 1. Get used to giving 1 on a weekly basis. After you're ready, if you're comfortable giving 1%, then give 2. After you're comfortable giving 2, give 3, give 4, give 5. That's how you have to start. Why? Because if you start with 10%, as soon as the check doesn't clear or the bills go up for 1 month, you're going to stop everything and it goes from 10 back to 0. So start with something you can handle. Same thing with learning Torah. Don't start with 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a day if you're at 0 right now. Start with 15 minutes. Start with something you can handle. 15 minutes, but every day. 15 minutes today, 15 minutes tomorrow, 15 minutes the next day, and so on and so forth. As soon as 15 minutes you feel yourself, it's too little, then increase it to a half hour or an hour or whatever it is. That way, it's controlled. It's controlled and it's gradually increasing to levels that you feel you need and you want. Whereas if you start too big, there's certain mitzvot, you start too big, you break it, it's like you go backwards. But there are certain mitzvot that there's no small steps. For example, Shabbat. You can't start Shabbat with small steps. It's either you keep it or you don't keep it. It's not like, no, I'm keeping Shabbat, I'm only driving. Oh, I'm keeping Shabbat, but I'm only going to, work. I'm not going to drive. I'm just going to work on Shabbat. There's no such thing. It's either you keep Shabbat or you don't keep Shabbat. So, of course, there are certain things that you have to do over time. You don't even know that you're supposed to do. But the point is that there's certain mitzvot that you have to take the leap of faith and just do it. And certain mitzvot, you take small steps. Either way, every person needs to know themselves. You know what you're capable of doing. You have to assess, and that's also why you have to have a Rav. Your Rav will also be that second opinion that's going to tell you, listen, that mitzvah, start slow. Why? It's too much for you. That mitzvah, do the whole thing. You can do it. Yeah, but it's hard. Yeah, you can do it though. Your Rav is going to direct you. He's going to direct you what you can, what you can't do. That's the point of having a Rav. And B'ezrat Hashem, all of us have Rabbanim that will tell us the truth that we need to hear, and not necessarily the one that is like music to our ears all the time. But always remember that sometimes the Rav needs a little bit of permission from you to be honest. Because in the beginning they don't know you too well. So you have to tell them, Rabbi, please tell me the truth as it's written in the Torah, not what you think. Like, tell me what it's actually written. Because sometimes the rabbis are so careful that it goes against us sometimes. Like, he doesn't think you're going to really listen to him, so he tells you something that's a little less. But you're really ready to take on the building. Tell him, what is it written? What can I do on this one? And ask him. Be honest with yourself, be honest with him, and then do your best. Either way, it's a known thing that along all of our journeys, we're all going to fall, here and there. Failure is expected. That's life. Failure is something that HaShem even writes in the Torah, that even a tzaddik falls 7 times. Tzaddik falls 7 times. Rav Dessler, alav hashalom, says only a fool thinks that HaShem wants you to fail. It's not that. It's that the tzaddik needs to fall. Why does he need to fall? Because in order for him to become a tzaddik, he learns how to use the failure as an opportunity to rise, as an opportunity to become greater. How? If you're trying to be a tzaddik or a tzaddikah, that means you're trying to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Getting closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not just a nice feeling in your heart. It actually gives you a physical feeling. You feel good about something. You feel like you have a purpose. Everyone has, once you start keeping mitzvot, you get some type of good feeling. So you have some type of good out of it. Now once we fail, we also know what that feels too. It feels terrible. Person makes a certain sin, it feels terrible. So if a person knows what good feels like, and now he sees what bad feels like, use the bad as, oh, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this terrible feeling anymore. Let me use this terrible feeling as a reminder of what I don't want, and what I want is what I used to have. So you use the negativity for positive purpose. If every single person saw, like for example, the biographies of billionaires, it's almost a given that every billionaire has a common fear. What's the fear? Being homeless. Even though they have enough money for 10 generations to spend $1 million a day and they still wouldn't run out of money, they're all afraid of being homeless. Not just broke or not popular. No, like homeless, like broke, like to the point where they're like on the streets. Almost every single one of them. Whether it's Larry Ellison from Oracle that has enough money to burn $1 million a day, or it's Warren Buffett that's older than I think America. But all of these people, they have enough money, but they still go to work to make more money. For what? You have $80 billion. You have $70 billion. What are you working for? No, they have to work. It makes me feel good. It doesn't make you feel good. I used to work a lot also. Everybody works a lot. It doesn't make you feel good. What is it? They have a fear. They have a fear that they're going to lose everything. And they're going to be homeless. And that fear drives them. That negativity drives them to try to succeed even more. So they know how to use that negativity for positive things. That's what we have to do also. Yes. There's something, it's just they don't like that something. There's something, they just don't like it. They like the respect they get because of money. So everybody has a role in life. Everybody has some type of a purpose in life. There's no such thing as a creation in the world without a purpose. Some people have a purpose and they don't like that purpose. They want to change that purpose. That's not something that is a good idea, but a lot of people do it. Am Yisrael has a common purpose. What's the common purpose? To serve HaShem and find a way for us to be united. But the only way we can be united is by using the Torah. So even though there are many different sects of Judaism, even within the religious community, what we have to worry about is what does the Torah say? As long as you follow the Torah, what Torah says, everything else doesn't really matter very much. Because what most people have a problem with is not the Torah. At least not in the religious world. Most people have the difference between different sects is customs. Some wear their pay is over here, some behind the ear, some have a hat that's a round hat, some a top hat. There's different customs. Some wear the belt, some wear the jacket, and different things. These are all customs. Nobody goes to Gehinnom for not following customs. But a lot of people leave Judaism because of customs, because they turn customs into halakha. And that's not right. So we always have to identify what's a custom, what's halakha. Halakha, we have to do whether we like it or not. Custom, you don't have to. You should if you're connected to it, but you don't have to. The point being is that a person needs to always remember, Judaism does not depend on the Jews. It depends on the Torah. If you follow the Torah, with HaShem, you'll succeed. If you see people that are going against the Torah, they're doing things against the Torah, try to tell them something. If they take the message, good. If not, try a different way. But don't be turned off by against the Torah because there's bad Jews. Because we don't do it anywhere else. There's a bunch of people that are criminals in the streets. They don't keep Torah, so does that make us not want to be friends with people that are secular? No. There's a bunch of businessmen that steal money. Does that mean that we don't want to do business anymore? No. There's bad everywhere. There's a bad apple on every tree. You can't judge the whole thing because of one bad apple. There are some bad Jews, there are some good Jews. Our job is to fix ourselves and then try to pick one or two other people to help them. Once we've helped them get on the ramp, we try to help another person. And don't spend too much time on people that are going against it because you're never going to please everyone. Yes?
I got into a lot of debates with Rebbeim about giving CDs out, because I've given CDs out, and people say that they don't want, it's against them to do that because they feel that the issue is that you bring people in that have all these bad habits, and it's the wrong thing to do because they begin to infect other people, and that's within the religious community. And then you have Rebbeim that give examples. Well, Abraham, he made a lot of gerim, but he never left his tent. They came to him. And their strategy is, if I sit in Gola all day, if I'm learning, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and if they come in and they want to be religious, that's them. But for me to go out and to start getting CDs and this and that, then they start saying, so how are we supposed to have unity, again, if they're pushing away because they want to be insular, they want to protect themselves?
So I'm going to give you a Gemara, because if I give you my opinion is worth less than a penny. No one's going to listen to it anyway. So I'm going to give you Torah. Torah, Gemara, Masachet Shabbat, page 55a. Also says it in 54 and also says it in 56, three different stories, three different issues. Torah says that there are gzerot that HaShem HaChaim brings on the world that's negative. Bad gzerot, bad prophecies. But the bad prophecies, he doesn't have to fulfill. He could change his mind. He could change his mind. It says, war of Gog and Magog. End of the world, big war, 2/3 of the world die in 8 minutes. Doesn't actually have to happen, but that's what's written. Could be something else. Could be an earthquake, could be a different planet. A lot of different things could happen. Meaning that the negative prophecies, there's no promise that they have to happen. He could change his mind. But the positive prophecies, they have to happen. Whatever he says that's positive, has to happen. Whatever he made a promise that is good, has to happen. Except one time. Only one time in the history of the world has Hashem turned a positive decree into a negative one. What was it? At the time of the Bet HaMikdash. Originally Hashem Yitbarach, the Gemara said to the Malachim, go find every tzaddik and write the letter Taf on their forehead. Spiritual letter Taf, didn't actually take ink or anything. And write the letter Taf on their neshama. That way, when the Malach HaMavet comes and does what he does to the Bet HaMikdash and so on, he can identify, oh, these are tzaddikim. What's the Taf represent? They follow the Torah from Aleph at Taf. They follow the entire Torah. Tzaddikim. Don't touch them. Not allowed. Torah protects them. Malach HaMavet comes to Hashem and says, Hashem, you know as well as I know, they're not tzaddikim. So Hashem says, what do you mean? They followed Torah? He goes, no, they didn't follow Torah. They didn't follow Torah, Hashem. He says, how come they didn't follow Torah? Malach HaMavet has a case. He says, Hashem, you have a mitzvah in the Torah that's called Ocheach tochiach et amitecha velo tisa alav chet. There's a mitzvah in the Torah, you must rebuke your brother. These tzaddikim that you call tzaddikim had an obligation to go tell all the mechalei Shabbat to go keep Shabbat. To go tell all of the people to do something good, to do mitzvot. They didn't do it. So that means they're not tzaddikim. Hashem says to Malach HaMavet, not only you're right, go kill them first. And that's exactly what happened. Hashem Yitbarach, Hashem Yachem, killed all the rabbis first. All the rabbis first. I'll give you another story from the Torah. You can tell this to these rabbis. They want to protect themselves. We have a mitzvah in the Torah that says that if somebody kills another person by accident, two people working on a building, one guy by accident drops a hammer on the other guy, he dies. He didn't kill him on purpose, but he killed him nonetheless. The same totzah, the same result. It happened. The hammer dropped, the guy died. According to halacha, the family of the person that died has the right to kill him as revenge. So what do? They send him to a city, a far city in the mountains. Say, just stay in that city over there, and they don't have a right. The family has no right to go into that city. They have no right. But if you're outside of that city, they can kill you, and there's no deen. There's no law against them. They're allowed. It's a revenge, they're allowed. So how long am I going to stay in this city? Stay until the Kohen Gadol dies. Meaning until the biggest tzaddik in the world dies. Then you're allowed to leave, and when you leave, they're not allowed to touch you. So what do all these people, all of these accidental murderers, what do they do in this city all day, all night? They all pray for the Kohen Gadol to die. Why? They want to leave the city. They want to go back to their wife and kids and business and everything else. So they all pray for the biggest tzaddik in the world to die. So Chamim ask Hashem, hey, it's the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol, you know what Kohen Gadol is? Kohen Gadol protects all of Am Yisrael. On Yom Kippur, he goes to the Kodesh Kodashim for a few minutes. He prays for all of Am Yisrael. If he's even thinking one thought that's not holy, he dies on the spot. Now I don't mean not holy like he thinks about an immodest woman. No, chas v'shalom. I'm talking about for a second he's thinking about his kid, he just born 2 days ago. Oh, he's so cute. That's it. He just thought his kid is cute. Dies on the spot. He thinks, oh, did I buy my wife groceries today? Dies. Why? Because it's not holy. It's not like a negative thought. Just simply not about Kedusha. That's how holy the Kohen Gadol is. So the Chachamim say, how is it that the Kohen Gadol deserves such a horrible thing to happen that all these people, an entire city of people, these murderers technically, all have the right to pray for him to die? It's not fair, right? Torah tells us, if somebody died accidentally, that means it's the Kohen Gadol's fault. Why? Because if he prayed strong enough during the time he was in Kodesh Kodashim, the entire nation would be saved. There wouldn't even be a sickness or an accidental death in the entire nation. Which means the fact that somebody died accidentally, he's actually a partner in the crime. Even though he doesn't even know the people, he's a partner in the crime. Which means, Rabotai, when it says Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lazeh, all of Am Yisrael are connected. All of Am Yisrael are there's no such thing as I'm only connected to him if he's from my same Keilah. I'm only connected to him if he's this or if he's that. No. We have an obligation to save each other, to save the rest of the nation. You're not allowed to say, oh no, these people, yeah, they're over there. No, they're Amalek, they're Evrav. No. You have to do whatever you can to help people. Especially if you have the opportunity. For a so-called rabbi to say that you shouldn't do kiruv because you're bringing bad people into the nation or into the keilah, then he should know he's not allowed to be a rabbi. In fact, you're not even allowed to count such a person as in minyan. And the reason why is because if Rabbi Akiva came to his keilah, he would reject him. If Moshe Rabbeinu came into his keilah, he would reject him. If Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes came into his keilah, he would reject him. Ishmael Avtalyon, that came before Rabbi Akiva, came before the beginning of the Mishnah, if they came to him, he would reject him. If David HaMelech came to him, he would reject him too. So who are you going to accept only? His kids? Why? Oh, his kids they're perfect? So there's no such thing. This is sinat chinam. This is sinat chinam. This is because I'm this way and they're not that way, I don't accept them. That's a problem. Now, we're not allowed to do such thing. Now, as far as there are certain people that you're not allowed to help them. There are certain types of people that are called minim. Minim are people that actively try to make other people not religious or idol worshippers, like Christian missionaries or things like that. Those people is a different story. But regular average Jew, which is most Jews in the world, you have to do something to try to help them. Give them a CD, send them a lecture, bring them to do something. For a rabbi to say such a thing, it's kfirah. It's not something that they're allowed to do. It's actually teaching the public a sin. It's machti arabim.
The thing is, how do you break through the religious community like that? Because that's how most are.
You don't break through the religious community because to break into the religious community you have to change nature.
It's all about protecting yourself.
What you have to do is you have to go about it and pretty much do your thing with or without approval. Don't try to get every rabbi in every keilah to accept you. I'll tell you guys a secret. There was supposed to be a shiur tomorrow. But somebody couldn't make it, so there wasn't a shiur. So I asked the person that was arranging, I'm going to try to arrange somewhere else. So he tried arranging somewhere else. He goes, oh, I just found out something terrible. I said, well, what did you find out? He said, there's a rabbi that's telling a bunch of rabbis not to allow you to teach. Meaning he's actually going out of his way to go tell other rabbis to not let me into the shul. Because chas v'shalom, people are going to do teshuvah. Chas v'shalom, you know. This is the craziness we deal with today. Now, I don't know who this person is, and I don't know why he's doing it, but the reality is this is part of the world. Now, this is very discouraging, but it's part of life. If I let it discourage me and it wouldn't help the world anything. So what do? I keep moving. We'll find another way. We'll find another way to teach. We'll find more people to teach. Anybody that wants to learn, I'm available tomorrow. We're thinking about doing something, a shorter shiur, more like a 20 minutes to a half-hour shiur in the afternoon around 12 o'clock. And then after that, more of a one-on-one advice, like people that need advice, any type of consulting, any type of specific personal issues. More of Kabbalat Ka'al type of shiur than an actual shiur like this. We're going to do it 12 o'clock tomorrow. If we could at least get a group of people that want to do it, we can do it. But The reality is there's always going to be people that are naysayers, that are going to go against. There's a bunch of people that spend a lot of time and energy trying to go against the Torah and against me and against other rabbis to get people to do teshuvah on a regular basis. They even spend money to do it. But we can't let them stop us. We have to do our job. So don't wait to get everybody to love you. Don't wait for everybody to accept you. Just do your job. If you try to do what you're doing and you do it right, HaShem will give you a blessing and you'll succeed with or without community approval. But if you try to get everybody's approval before you're doing it, then it's never going to succeed. Why? Because the Satan is actively fighting against Kiruv. He's going to do everything and anything possible to stop it, because every single time you get somebody to do teshuvah and start serving HaShem, you're stealing an employee from him. He used to work for the Satan with his sins. Now he's going to work for HaShem. So Yetzirah doesn't want this. So he's going to try to get in the way. So you don't let them. Don't try to make a big deal out of it. Just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Don't focus on the negativity. Even though sometimes it's difficult and annoying, you got to keep moving forward. There's always going to be HaShem. This is just part of nature. This is part of life, and it's also part of the end of days. Next question. We have Arvit, I think, in a few minutes. But
can I leave it?
it's according to the shul. Well, if they want you to, I'm not the balabite of the shul. Next question. Beseder Rabotai, if anyone wants to do this shiur / Kabbalat Ka'al tomorrow at 12 o'clock, let me know. Please, everyone, take some CDs. Like I said, they're free. Give them out. B'ezrat Hashem. There's also a newsletter that we write, Alona Kodesh. Take them, they're free. Take everything, B'ezrat Hashem, and publicize it. Get Am Yisrael to do teshuvah. Thank you for learning with me. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.